Greetings! Today's talk focuses on two areas. The first is what I'll call the Apple effect, and that is the halo effect Apple has had, where they have great customers, they stick with them long term. The second thing we cover today is Bob Lutz has announced that for several reasons, Tesla is actually doomed in the next 2 years. We're going to cover that and some cleanup topics on Tesla as well at the end. We'll also have our health effect recommendations for the day as well. This is Greg for Tesla Fan Insight. Thanks once again for joining us. If this is your first time on our channel, please take time to like and subscribe. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. Also wanted to note we're on Patreon. Could use your support. $1 or $2 a month really helps to make the channel happen, work, and grow. The second thing is please make sure you're watching us on YouTube and going directly to YouTube at Tesla Fan Insight, because we have a lot of entities trying to steal our work and they're putting it on all these other random sites. We'd appreciate it if you would watch us on Tesla Fan Insight on YouTube and not other channels. So I have a section on our page focused on the Bob Lutz reactions to Tesla and responses to his comments. I had a chance to review Bob Lutz's comments regarding Tesla, and I was really blown away by the fact that Bob Lutz has been very consistent every quarter when he's brought on by CNBC. And as we all know, CNBC consistently brings on naysayers to the viability of Tesla, and Bob Lutz is the main guy. Lutz is an experienced executive with time at both European and American manufacturers. His highest level was sort of the number 3 job at GM. And he constantly has a stream of comments that I think are interesting. It's worth reviewing, and I'm kind of blown away by it. It's been brought up by our regular viewer, Jerry, that he actually killed the EV at General Motors. And I have to agree that he actually did kill the EV when everyone wanted to continue. I also will note that he's also the one that, after seeing what Tesla was up to, made sure that GM got back in and did the research necessary that delivered the products that GM is currently selling. So I think it's a mixed bag when it comes to sort of the assessment of him relative to Tesla and its Tesla, the whole EV market, etc. Now, I was blown away because I listened to his comments in September on CNBC. You guys are welcome to check it out as well. And Bob Lutz, as the primary portion of his analysis on Tesla, is the fact that Tesla has a huge problem. And that huge problem is that there's a nightmare lurking, which is that every one of the major manufacturers around the world have announced that within 2 years they're going to be bringing out products that are going to be Tesla competitive. And as those new products arrive, we're going to see Tesla get blown away by that competition and people moving over to those competitors. So on a surface level, you'd have to say, hey, if 20 companies that are global players with large dollars bring out a Tesla competitor that's viable, then we're going to see Tesla's demise, because all those customers will simply leave Tesla to go to those other manufacturers because they're offering such a better alternative to what Tesla does. And on the surface, you'd have to say that kind of makes sense. And this is why the whole movement over to electric is kind of crazy, because you have all these companies that have announced $100 billion worth of solutions that should, in theory, kill Tesla. The impact that it's had is zero. So the one case in point I want to look at today that I think is mind-blowing is the discussion of what's going on with the Bolt. Now, if you'll all recall, the Chevy Bolt is about a $40,000 vehicle. It gets supposedly 238 miles between charges, and at 42K, customers should be saying, hey, I want the GM EV instead of the starting $50,000 price tag on the Model 3 that's currently available. So, plus, in theory, GM hasn't run out of the government credit. So in theory, Tesla should be shaking in their boots, because there's also a situation going on here where customers should be saying, I can save $15,000 by buying a Chevy Bolt. And the answer to that has been not happening. So what's fascinating about this situation with the Chevy Bolt is, think about it. GM is losing $10,000 per Chevy Bolt. They have a backlog of 2,000 customers in Europe that actually want to buy the car that can't because GM isn't going to be shipping them. But in essence, you have a weird situation here where there's kind of a crazy thing happening where customers are saying, look, I could buy one of the other EVs, be it a Bolt or a Nissan Leaf or whatever being produced by other manufacturers for that 150 mile range, whatever it is. But they're saying, no, I think I'll pay more and have a Tesla. Now, I'm blown away, because if you think about it, then Bob Lutz's theory on the fact that all these announced vehicles will come out and destroy Tesla kind of makes sense. But what if people have developed in their mindset a sense of Tesla being the premium product in the electric market, and then all these new competitors, even if they're associated with big brands like Mercedes-Benz, et cetera, that are entering a marketplace where the established premium brand is already Tesla. Now, I had a very surprising, if you guys watch our show, our last show number 298, focused on an interview with a recent buyer of a Tesla 100D Model S. And he moved over from a Nissan Leaf with 100 mile of range. And he made a comment to me that I was very, very surprised by, that I didn't take seriously while interviewing him. And I asked him, why didn't you, if you paid for a 100D, why not get the performance version of the Model S, because you're paying all that money anyway? And he looked at me and he said, oh no, the thing you don't realize is that the Model S, the Model S 100D gets 15 miles of range more than the performance version of the Model S. So I was kind of shocked, because I was like, whoa, a 15-mile difference of range could influence your buying decision. And that's from 315 miles to 330 or 335 miles. So I looked at him and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. So I mention all this to all of you because at the end of the day, range is a big deal. Range anxiety is a big deal. And until you've run out of range in a low range vehicle, it's possible you may not be able to fully appreciate how important range is in the EV marketplace. So I kind of bring this up because when you look at the fact that, again, we've discussed this and I'm bringing it up again, so I apologize for those of you who heard it. Just remember the comment there where it was articulated that if you offer a customer 100 miles of range, 25% of the population is interested. When you offer 300 miles of range, 75% of the population is now interested in purchasing that vehicle. So the next question that pops up then is, what happens when there are several new entrants into the marketplace in 2 years that are targeting approximately 200 mile in range? The e-tron is said to have 200 mile in range approximately. We don't know what the real number is, and I would guess the Daimler Benz product and the SUV is about the same. So one of the lurking questions is, are customers able to figure out the difference between 200 mile of range and 300 mile of range? And I believe the answer is, heck yeah, they can figure that out, especially for those users who are moving up from other EVs that had poor mileage ratings. And so I kind of bring this up to you because there's an issue going on, which is the fact that range is an issue and Tesla is dominating the range capability of cars right now. And even if customers could get another vehicle that's cheaper, they're willing to pay up to get the premium brand. Which brings me to the whole question of the Apple effect. So I will confess right now that I'm an Apple fanatic. I started using their products 25 years ago. I actually had a couple of interactions with Steve Jobs, both with his kids as well as with him personally, and I love their products. Now, I find it interesting because Apple will introduce innovations and other people will quickly follow on, and then you end up using the new companies because it's just cheaper. So I have to admit, right now I have an Android, and I have to admit, I have an Android. I've had Androids for the last 2 years. I still have a bunch of Apple products, including my iPad and my old iPhones. And I actually think I'm gonna sneakily turn back on my iPhone so I can start having an Apple relationship again, because there are a bunch of things that Apple does that helps with the customer relationship that's not done by other manufacturers still. And in particular, why and how this relates to Tesla is the whole ecosystem idea. So as soon as you buy an Apple product, not only do you have a product in your hand, but if you have a problem with it, you can register for the Genius Bar and go see someone from Apple discuss your product and your issue. And so you have a built-in IT department on the back end of the purchase of an Apple product. Well, guess what? There are other sort of ecosystem effects that occur. For example, there are a lot of people that buy products based on a family member, a close friend, et cetera, having the same product. So one of the things that happens with Tesla is, oh, my boss has a Model S, or my cousin, or whoever has one. Well, guess what? All those people compare notes, and you might want to buy a car that's $5,000 less, or that has 5 or 10% more range, or slightly off. But when you add the supercharger to the number of people you know that have the product and that are working with it successfully, all of those effects start to influence the buyer decision, and it's sort of a halo effect, if you will, of how and why people buy products. So this kind of gets into the whole discussion of the fact that Bob Lutz is suggesting that the day they figure it out and they drop a product on the market that's somewhat competitive with Tesla, everybody's going to leave Tesla and buy the product from Daimler or GM or other companies. And I think that, well, while that is a possibility, once they get their act together in 2 or 3 years, what if the Tesla customers are seeing value in knowing Tesla's products, already having a relationship with those products and successfully using them, and decide, hey, I'm staying with Tesla even though there's new stuff coming out from other companies. If you go to something called Tesla Fan Insight on YouTube, we've been posting a number of photos of the parking lots and inside of the Tesla facilities. We usually discuss generally increasing amounts of Model 3 and their purchase, etc. But there's something else that I've been noticing that I've been very surprised by, which is go through some of the photos that we have, and there are a number of trade-in vehicles, usually Mercedes, BMW, etc., that are sitting in the Tesla lot, which are trade-in vehicles that are coming on Tesla products. And you'll notice many or most of them are high-end vehicles from the great manufacturers around the world. There are a couple of photos I haven't placed because I was a little embarrassed at the number of photos we were placing there. But one of them that blew me away was there was a gentleman driving what's called an Intercontinental GT convertible. And so clearly this individual spent $300,000 or $400,000 on a convertible Bentley. But the real issue is that even people driving $300,000 cars are using and making the transition to look at Teslas. So it's pretty amazing for me to drive through a Tesla lot and see a Porsche Cayennes, other $100,000 great cars from the great manufacturers around the world. And this again portends bad things for competing firms, because the quick switch that Daimler and BMW and GM are all hoping for when they finally deliver a quality product, that actually may not happen. In fact, I think it's probably not going to happen, which means that Tesla becomes a very large company as they have a footprint in other markets rather than just the United States. So our review for today is that Bob Lutz has assessed that Tesla is doomed based on the number of great manufacturers that are going to deliver terrific vehicles in the next 2 years. Mr. Lutz indicated that all of these companies have announced large numbers of great vehicles. The key to it is that it's hard to drive cars that have been announced. It's a lot easier to drive the ones that you can drive by and purchase. So this is another factor, which is an announcement does not mean it's going to be available. So in the case of e-tron, as well as the Porsche product, all of these products have been announced, but they're saying even though we're announcing them now in September of 2018, they're going to be available in the middle to end of 2019 or possibly 2020. So these products actually have to be delivered with the performance specs they described before anybody can claim that they're going to try to drive them. And so I think this is another problem going on right now. Yeah. Thank you for so we're in our answer some questions right now. Excellent point regarding the number of charging stations available. Tesla has a huge problem that I haven't figured out, but they're going to figure out and let us know how it's going to work soon. And what that huge problem is that there are a number of Model S and Model X owners who have lifetime supercharging for free. Because of this, Tesla actually placed superchargers in locations outside of the major cities as a way to help people make transitions between major metro areas. What this creates is a problem when all these Model 3s have come out and new X's, is Tesla could easily build X facilities or supercharging facilities in the middle of the city, but what happens when these people pull in and get free electricity that has to be paid for by Tesla, and they don't have to go very far, as is the case with the superchargers that were placed between major cities. I don't know how this is going to work, but I do think that they need to get some cash in order to be able to pay the electric bill for the vehicles that are using that electric. So I also believe that if in fact this is figured out, we can now have a number of firms authorized by Tesla to build their own superchargers, so there'll be a lot more charging spaces to address the onslaught of vehicles that are going to be trying to charge all at the same facilities. So yes, thank you for the comment regarding lack of charging facilities. So we're nearing the end of the show. I wanted a reminder of your homework for today is make sure you do 20 make sure you do 20 leg lifts on each leg to help strengthen your quad muscles so you won't have knee problems. A good multivitamin would be great. At least a half-hour walk is highly recommended by our docs. And do not eat within 2 hours of going to bed, because you'll get acid reflux and possibly cancer in the upper esophagus. And if particularly in a sunny space, but all places, at least a 30 SPF to prevent skin cancer. I want to thank all of you for joining us. We're still waiting for numbers here on Tesla earnings that we can comment on. I love interacting with the Bob Lutz Tesla is doomed analysis, because even when he's wrong, he's unwilling to admit that it's a great car and that the company is going to do fine. But it is fascinating to watch the mindset of some of these older executives relative to new ideas that threaten their former employers. So my conclusion on this is, yeah, I agree. Great idea, Hector. Under another name, a supercharger network would be a great idea to solve the supercharger needs. Thanks for the comment there, Hector. So I want to thank all of you again for joining us, Jerry, Hector, and our other guests that were live with us today. Please reminder that if your like really influences the placement of our show, we'd appreciate that. Any help you can provide on Patreon would be appreciated. Also, just a reminder, your comments are also always appreciated, and we'd love to see you comment on the show, because that also is influential in a sense of there being value. This is Greg for Tesla Fan Insight. Tschüss, Max, tschüss German, au revoir French, adios Spanish, Hoda Hafez, Farsi, Lahitraot, Hebrew, and in Jamaica we say, Enough respect, walk good man. Have a great day, and we look forward to our next conversation. And thanks for joining us, and thank you for all of your comments for those of us who joins us live, etc.